everyone says the same thing. The US is spending billions on war. And the conclusion is always obvious. That money is being lost. But what if that's not entirely true? What if some of that money is actually being earned back, just in a different way? Because during the same period, tens of billions of dollars in weapons deals were signed with countries like those in the Gulf and others preparing for conflict. So now the question isn't just how much is being spent, but something more uncomfortable. Who is actually benefiting? When we think about war, we imagine destruction, explosions, loss, chaos, and that's real. But behind that reality, there's another layer, a financial system. Because governments don't just burn money, they allocate it. Through contracts, companies, supply chains. And once you start following that flow, you realize something important. War doesn't just destroy wealth, it redistributes it. Let's start with the most obvious part, defense companies. When military spending increases, that money doesn't disappear, it becomes contracts. Massive ones. For missiles, drones, fighter jets, logistics, maintenance, technology. And these contracts are awarded to private companies. Companies that grow when demand rises. And during conflict, demand rises fast. Production increases, factories run longer. New deals are signed. So while governments are spending, these companies are earning. Not in theory, but in real, measurable growth. But here's where it gets more interesting. War doesn't stay in one place. It creates fear everywhere, and fear changes behavior. Countries start preparing. Increasing defense budgets, buying weapons, upgrading systems, and many of those purchases come from global suppliers. During recent tensions, countries in the Gulf, along with key allies, signed multi-billion-dollar weapons deals, not because they were already at war, but because they didn't want to be unprepared. So while one conflict is happening, a much larger market is quietly expanding. And that market moves money across borders. War doesn't just affect weapons, it affects energy, oil, gas, trade routes. When conflict disrupts supply, prices rise. And when energy prices rise, everything becomes more expensive. Transport, food, daily life. Markets react instantly, and in that volatility, some sectors gain, because instability creates opportunity. Not for everyone, but for those positioned to benefit from it. Then comes the second phase. After destruction comes rebuilding. Cities damaged, infrastructure broken, and rebuilding requires massive investment, contracts, projects, international funding. So the same system that grows during conflict often grows again after it ends. A second wave of money, moving through a different channel, but through the same structure. Now step back. Money moves from taxpayers to governments, to private contracts, to global markets. And then, sometimes, back through international deals and influence, it doesn't disappear, it changes hands. So what looks like loss is also movement. A system where different parts experience very different outcomes. Some pay, some grow, and both things can be true at the same time. And this is where the reality becomes harder to ignore. Because while companies expand and contracts increase, the average person feels something else. Higher fuel prices, rising costs, economic pressure. So the same system that generates profit in one place creates strain in another. And that contrast is what most people never see. So next time you hear billions are being spent on war, don't just think about the cost. Ask a better question. Where is that money going? Because it's not disappearing, it's moving. And once you see that, you start to understand war very differently. It's moving,